we're ready to go. Ken, we are right on time. Nice work already. Okay, Drew Olsen, Procore, really glad to be here. Thanks to everybody. Ken did ask us a little bit to try to set the tone for the day. So, nothing daunting about that. But really, the thought that I had was, and our friend from Frog here just mentioned on it, is the challenge in front of us, the opportunity in front of us, and how business as usual is not going to get us there. I think we've all picked up on that. And so I think we've got a really great panel today that's going to sort of give us an idea of how much of that work is hitting the street yet or not, what those programs are starting to look like, how they're able to plan for it, and what kind of work is coming forward on that. So that's the easy part for us. We sort of know how to do that really well. The part I'm going to challenge our panel with to help set the tone for the day is to help sort of encourage how we here can help them and engage in better ways and different than business as usual, and also how their agencies maybe are trying to bring more people into their ecosystem to help them deliver these huge programs and stuff. So the only real ask I have for setting tone today is that we be open, honest, present, all that kind of stuff. Is Aaron McClellan in the room already? I'm not sure if there he is, Aaron. Hey, I'm picking on you, brother, because it's been a couple years since I've seen Aaron, but we were on a panel together a few years ago. I forget what the topic was. But even then, we had our big theme was like dropping our egos, opening the kimono, however you want to say that, right? To really come together as people to deliver these things. Because I always forget until something goes wrong, it actually comes down to people. Right? When either something succeeds or fails, it's actually not technology, it's not programs, it's not government, you know what I mean? It's literally us in the room. So I say let's take this $1.2 trillion challenge seriously and change the way we all interact with each other and the way we deliver projects. So Ken, I'm thinking that could be a theme for the day is we got 8 or 9 hours together. Let's make it count and let's see if we can drive the industry forward. Sound reasonable, panel? All right, enough from me. Let's get with it. So I'm just going to ask the panel here. I'm not going to give you the intros. They've got wonderful intros. A lot of you know them already. I'm going to ask them to intro themselves. And I'm asking them to intro on question number 1, who they are, what their agency does, right, in general. And then also I'm asking them to give us a sense of all this investment. Is it really hitting the street yet? Has it hit their agency yet or not? That kind of question. I'm hoping that's something of interest to all of us in the room, which it certainly is to me. So maybe we'll start there. Maybe we'll just start from my end and work our way down. Seem reasonable?
Yep, sounds good.
Good.
I'm Josh Laipply. I'm the Chief Projects Officer for Mayor Mike Johnston. I have to make sure I say that right. I was previously with Mayor Michael Hancock, so we'll see how much longer I have a job. That's a fun thing to talk about. But from an infrastructure perspective, you are in the city and county of Denver, and everything that is here, the city and county of Denver does. There's a bunch of city and county of Denver folks out in the audience. All of the infrastructure that you see, we try to help deliver, whether it's stormwater, whether it's roads, whether it's transportation, all of that really important. As far as money hitting the streets, absolutely, right? You've got the biggest infrastructure bill that's ever been passed. And just prior to that, we were in COVID. And I remember, this could be career limiting. I remember telling the mayor, hey, we have an economic downturn coming because of COVID, and historically, construction prices go down right after that, so we should go out with another bond. We should really get ahead of this. And we started to do that, and then inflation went crazy. So that was a bad advice on my behalf. But the good thing
no
is...
good deed,
Right. The good thing is right after that, there was a big infrastructure bill passed, right? A bipartisan infrastructure law. And so that provided a lot of funding for us to help against inflationary pressures, but then also deliver projects that have been on the books that we haven't been able to get out previously. So yes, that money
money's
is coming
rolling,
to fruition.
projects are hitting the street. Awesome.
Yep.
My name is Sam Anderson. I'm the energy specialist for the Colorado Department of Agriculture and the administrator of a small grant program called the Acre 3 program. And we provide grants for energy projects, energy infrastructure on farms directly to agricultural producers. So for about $400,000 a year, we are doing 20 or 30 projects a year that are making a real difference for agricultural producers. And so all this money goes directly to the producers and goes to their projects. we are working very closely with USDA, with Rural Development, and the Natural Resources Conservation Service. And right now we're focusing on funneling some of the Inflation Reduction Act funding, IIJA funding, through us to help make sure that these energy projects really protect the land values, the inherent values, so that when we are installing solar, for example, we're doing it as agrivoltaics, where we are putting the solar above crops or above the land where livestock is raised. And we are preserving those land values instead of replacing it with solar. So we hope to spend about $20 million over the next few years of that money through our agency, leveraging our $500,000 a year and doing several hundred projects. And we hope to work with many of you, if possible, to get those projects on the ground. We need the contractors and the people to do the permitting and feasibility studies and so forth to make those projects work. So love to communicate with you and talk about our needs, whether it's agrivoltaics and how we're going to design those projects, or hydropower in irrigation systems and the control systems that we need for those projects and so forth. So
Excellent.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Natriece Bryant. I'm the Public-Private Partnership Director in the Department of Personnel and Administration, and I oversee our state land, with the exception of higher education and the Department of Natural Resources. And so our office was actually started a year ago. I've been with the state for the last 11 years and in government for 17, which is kind of overwhelming, but still part of my career. So as we've looked through what does infrastructure mean, we are actually taking the position that we have social infrastructure, and our projects are specifically based on those topics. So we were tasked with redeveloping 55 parcels of land that is considered unutilized or underutilized by the state. In 2021, legislation passed, and I don't know if we were predicting the bad things that could happen, but 2021, we passed legislation to list all of those properties on a website. So if you're ever interested, click on my website, and we actually have a map that shows you statewide where we have either got parking lots, random pieces of land that we don't use. Sometimes we store gravel. It really makes no sense why we do some of the things that we do. But now we're taking those parcels and we're redeveloping them for a couple of different things. Affordable housing has been a concept that has been talked about for decades. And so as we really want to put a dent in the 225,000 per year housing complexes that we need to build in order to help people actually live in the state of Colorado, we're helping put a dent in that. We're also able to help with behavioral and mental health treatment expansion, specifically for our youth. And so we're able to take some of our facilities that are currently built but were closed down for other reasons and repurpose those into treatment. We also are able to expand with early child care, and then we finally have broadband as our 4 tasks in which we're working on. Our money has hit the street. We passed legislation that's got 2 separate bills that give us a set of pot of money, some focused on housing, some focused on the 4 things that I talked about. One of the things that we've noticed is that in local governments, because we're a local control state, each locality has a different need. And it is our job as the state to focus on that local need and not just assume that because the state says something that we should just go ahead and do it. Building it and hoping that they shall come has not worked for us. We typically have a lot of deferred maintenance on our projects and on the buildings that we build. And so every year we have to go back to the legislator and ask, hey, we forgot that we need air conditioning. Can we have this put into our system? We forgot about the water. Can we have this upgraded? And so what we're doing with our projects is we're actually building the operation and maintenance into the financing model with the private sector so that we don't have to go back every year and ask for the money that we know we're going to be told no on. A couple of our projects that we're working on are actually dual purpose. So we have early child care and housing, first floor early child care, housing on floors above. And what that's allowed for is the people who are living in those complexes have immediate access to childcare for their families and also for the community. Obviously, we have to be very careful with fair housing, so we open it up to community. Another piece that we're working on with the infrastructure component for broadband is the Department of Corrections. We have actually will expand a project for our 2 highest recidivism facilities. And we will be expanding the broadband services to allow for more behavioral and mental health treatment to occur off-site so that a behavioral health specialist does not have to drive 5 hours to one of our sites. And we'll get the treatment for people who are incarcerated so that when they re-enter society, because 80% of them will, that they come back in a different and better space. So that's what we're spending our funds on. You'll see a lot of projects. I'm happy to work with you all. We need architects, we need engineers, we need planning, we need feasibility studies done to show how we can use our state land differently.
I'm just happy that you're here in Natriece because this is bringing like the people side into infrastructure. You know what I mean? It's easy to remember turning on the water and getting clean water tap and flushing the toilet, or driving on the road, or getting that light rail instead of taking the cab across I-70. All really important, but what you just described is not business as usual, and all of you have been touching on it already. So really impressive. I couldn't resist but to comment. Sorry.
Good morning. I'm Catherine Rafferty. I am a senior engineer at Denver International Airport. So hopefully you all had a good trip through our airport.
We had a
You
ground
might have
stop yesterday. Can we do anything about the weather, or is that outside of our control?
actually this is normal Colorado weather. To be very hot during the day and then have storms at around 3 o'clock in the
Could be an
afternoon.
interesting monsoon season, is what I'm thinking.
Exactly, but the moisture, it's a good thing here because we're the Continental Divide, so it helps everybody. And we've been in a drought, so it's kind of nice to see it back to normal. At the airport, I basically lead a group that handles all the drainage and wet utility infrastructure. So if it flows, it usually flows through our offices. We have an awful lot of infrastructure, 77 miles of water line. We have 24 plus miles of gravity sewer line, another 24 force main. So there's a lot of different aspects and lift stations and so on. As everyone has said, it is business paradigm shift in this era post-COVID. And if you noticed, we have a lot of construction going on at the airport. Just a little. Just a little. I'm glad you noticed. It's going to go on for a couple more years, and it's going to increase. And it's a good thing. Right now, the airport is undergoing its largest expansion since original construction. And basically billions are being spent to expand the concourses, we've built hangars recently. The terminal is expanding, and we're not done yet. So we'll talk about that in just a second. But you can understand why the airport is a $33.5 billion economic impact to Colorado. We employ 35,000 people. We get going. In terms of the Infrastructure Act,
You had a few details.
just a few details. So far we've had $204 million of that money transferred through the FAA to our projects, and that is just between 2022 and 2023. So of that, 82 million is from the airport terminal program. And that is being used primarily for baggage system upgrades, including TSA screening requirements. So it should be quicker to go through security when they're all done. In addition, we have another 122 million that is going to airport infrastructure grants. Those grants basically are focusing on our airfield. So in terms of
Civil, some good old-fashioned civil.
good old heavy civil. And then, of course, we have our normal airport improvement program grants. Those are issued annually and have since the airport started. That's about 18 million, 17, 18 million. That is in hand. Those projects are in multiple phases of design and construction. And basically, we're looking for a lot of help. I see a lot of common faces that already work as vendors or contractors at the airport. So good to see. And hopefully, we'll see more of you.
Awesome, thanks.
Good morning. So I'm the doom and gloom guy of the group. We all love infrastructure. However, I'm the state's security subject matter expert. And so I'm a trooper with the Colorado State Patrol, specifically a task force officer. So this is my full-time role. What I do is break into many of your facilities, everything from Department of Defense to day schools. One common misconception, oh, and I didn't give my name, Trooper Jason McCall. One common misconception is that because of my role, where I'm positioned within the state's fusion center, which is a whole 20 or 30-minute conversation, because of that positioning is typically understood or misunderstood that I only support government entities. And quite contrary to that, critical infrastructure is primarily owned by our private sector partners. And so I spend about 90% of my time working with many of you or your organizations. So what that looks like is the Fusion Center is an information sharing hub. So information comes in from across the globe, the country, and the state, specifically threat information. We look at that information. We have civilian analysts that present that information in a meaningful way. And I look at it and say, okay, what are the trends happening and how can this impact our infrastructure? And then I look super smart because I meet with folks like you and say, oh, here's what we're doing on a micro perspective to prevent or protect against these incidents and these threats that we're seeing. And I take that information and share it specifically. So we'll red team a facility or just come and have a discussion with you on here's some of the things that you need to be mindful of. And we'll speak more to that, I think, here this morning, but happy to be here.
Very cool. Awesome. Thanks. So I think everybody can get the sense that the money's rolling, projects are flowing, and these folks are here asking for help, right? And we are that help. So it's wonderful already. So now I wanted to give everybody a chance to dig a little bit more into the projects that have them excited and the things that are sort of top of mind for them right now, maybe the most nearest term opportunities and where the most help is needed. New stuff as well as ongoing things. You want to give a few thoughts there, guys?
Sure. So immediate need, if any of you were paying attention, the mayor declared a state of emergency and we need to build 1,000 spaces for people before December 31st. So that's an immediate need. I'm sure all of those sites will need stormwater plans. I'm sure they will need utilities, all of those things. That'll probably be under like some kind of emergency procurement would be my guess. I don't think we've figured all of that out yet.
Wow.
So that's immediate. And then there's immediate, which is, we had the Elevate Bond Program, and we were finishing up that bond program, still finishing up that bond program. But then during COVID, we came out with the Rise Bond Program. And part of the reason for the Rise Bond Program was, one, to inject more money into the economy to help us with recovery. But two, to try to leverage that also with federal funds that were coming available with bipartisan infrastructure law. So all of those RISE projects are on our website. Those are things you should be tracking. Those are mostly in design right now. I don't think we have too many RISE projects that have entered construction, maybe a few. But that's going to be the bulk of your opportunities. And in addition to that, our typical capital program is also something to track that's also on Deborah's website through our infrastructure.
So RISE is kind of new, emergency nearly, if not emergency, and then you got your CIP kind of just getting beefier and rolling as usual.
Yep. And then in addition to that, like we were talking about bipartisan infrastructure law, one of the grants that we were successful with was a U.S. Army Corps grant with $350 million. That's the federal portion. We have a match portion that's right around $206 million. So you've got $500 million that are going to be invested on the South Platte River from about like Alameda, 6th Avenue, all the way north into Adams County. So that is a huge project that we're currently in engineering procurement for, and then trying to figure out what is the best way to deliver that on the construction side.
Are inlet baskets spec'd in on that yet?
Sure, this is a good time to go ahead and just get those.
Where's my friend at from?
Get those put into the procurement requirements.
Yeah, I'm trying. You know what I mean? I'm doing what I can for all of us.
Shameless plug.
We're all in this together, people.
And then we have a list of all the bipartisan infrastructure grants that we're chasing. Some of those will be used to offset gaps in our program because of the inflationary pressures that we've had a lot, especially with a bond program, right? You've made a commitment to voters, you got to deliver on what you committed to, but now everything costs more. So grants are a great way to help us deliver on our promises. And then we'll be evaluating, are there some additional that weren't in our plan? And there are good grants out there that maybe we should add something to our plan, but we always have to have fiscal constraints, so that's important. I'm saying that because there are 2 people in here from Department of Finance that work on our capital program. Did I do okay? Thank you.
There you go. Awesome. Thank you.
My work focuses on 2 big issues. Number one, our governor Polis has a Bold 5 initiative, and one of those 5 initiatives is cleaning up our grid and converting Colorado to 100% renewable energy in our grid by 2040. And so my program is making a small contribution to that. We're looking forward to increasing that contribution significantly. So over the last couple of years, we've installed 2 megawatts of renewable energy, primarily solar and some hydropower, but we want to do 10 times that much over the next several years. And we're coordinating with other state agencies, such as the Department of Local Affairs, who is wanting to do things on an even larger scale, helping to engage local governments across the state in developing clean energy strategy moving forward and participating in that 100% renewable energy goal and helping them to fund these community scale projects. So, and those projects, secondly, so I mentioned the agrivoltaics and a little bit about the hydropower. So water infrastructure is part of that as well. We can use irrigation hydropower to incentivize modernizing our our water infrastructure in agriculture. Why that's important is because according to the Colorado Agricultural Water Alliance, 80% of all the water that's diverted from rivers and aquifers in Colorado goes to irrigation for agriculture.
I read that with you, or maybe you mentioned it on our prep call, but that shocked me.
Yeah, and most
Leave
of that,
my yard alone. You know what I mean? I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. But
the majority of that is for flood irrigated fields. And flood irrigation is not the most water use efficient way of irrigating crops. So one thing we can do with by incorporating energy recovery hydropower into these irrigation systems, we can convert that flood irrigation to, first of all, converting those earthen ditches often into pipelines that help to deliver more water to the fields. And then we can apply that water with much higher precision and reduce that water use consumption by maybe 30 to 50% just by converting away from that flood irrigation. Plus, at the same time, we can improve water quality significantly by reducing the amount of pesticides and fertilizers that are transferred into our rivers, such as we have 6 major rivers that originate in Colorado. And the Western Slope has, the Colorado River Basin is in, much of it is in the Mancos Shale, which used to be an ancient seabed and therefore very salty. And there is an enormous amount of salinity transferred into the Colorado River Basin because of agriculture. And we can eliminate that by converting from flood irrigation to center pivots. And if we can use energy recovery hydropower in that very topologically diverse area with the mountains and all the water, the surface waters have enormous intrinsic energy content that we can recover and convert that into electricity. And so there are vast opportunities, and we're just now beginning to tap into that through this program.
impressive.
So we hit the ground running. I have 17 active projects. I will not bore you with all 17. I'll talk about a couple of them that are relevant to this group. We have the Global Energy Park, which is adjacent to the NREL campus in Jefferson County. That particular project is looking at repurposing land that we did a land swap with the county to allow for a development that has 3 buildings, one that is specifically focused on lab space for universities as we're starting to get students into the energy and infrastructure fields. The second portion, it could potentially be for NREL and their campus and expanding their campus to allow for energy efficiency, but also to allow for the students to kind of progressively move into a space that they could work in the energy field. And then we'll have a leased space that will have several different partners within organizations across the state that focus on hydrogen, electricity. Obviously, this building will be completely and 100%, you talk about the governor's goals. This project actually looks at getting everything to an energy efficient component. So 2040, we're going to try to have it done by 2026. And so we will be hoping to break ground. That particular project brings together what the public-private partnership office is specifically put in place to do. Bringing together our private sector, we have a developer, and looking at what that developer can do in order to make that property work. I don't tend to get properties that have really great water access, have great infrastructure. I tend to have floodplains, I tend to have wetlands, and so we have to mitigate all of that before we're able to do this project. The other one that we're looking at is in Steamboat Springs. Again, I don't get really great parcels of land. It's in a floodplain. And so we'll be doing a housing development in partnership with an early child care center with the city of Steamboat and Routt County. And that project really is about a $78 to $100 million project. And believe it or not, we're actually going to be working with US Forestry to develop that property into mass timber. And so as we're building things, we're looking at pushing our local governments and the state to think about it can't just all be steel. There has to be other things that we develop and other materials that we use that could potentially cut cost and allow for us to have less fires, less things like that. And the point of access and entry, if you're familiar with Steamboat, Rabbiter's Pass is really great. And I'm being sarcastic when you're going into it. It's one point of entry, one point of exit. And so how do we create a broader scope to not only have access to that property, but is there expansion efforts that we can do with our partners at CDOT to make the access a little bit more simple? I also have another project that we're working on that it looks at repurposing a site that used to be a youth correction site. And it's in, again, Jefferson County. It's about 39 acres of property. And we'll be starting a conceptual design process with that. We need to know what we can put there, what we should put there, and also what works well for that locality. So we'll be working on that project. And then our favorite parcel, which if anyone's from here, Casa Bonita is doing, yes, okay, the pink building that's changing and having great food. That's not just your sopapillas anymore. Will be changing, and so we have an adjacent parcel, which is the DMV. If any of you are really familiar with going to the DMV, it's a fun place to be. You get your driver's license. We actually have 3 adjacent parcels that we own. And during COVID, one of those tended to be heavily occupied by people experiencing homelessness. We also have another part that we water a lot. It looks really pretty and it's green, but it's not the best and highest use for that property. And so working with the local government, they have an art line that they're looking at. So could we potentially develop something there? So we're finishing up that conceptual design right now. We will need people and we will be putting out solicitations for all of those. And then finally, another way that we're spending our money is I cannot be an expert in everything, nor do I ever try. We are putting out solicitations specifically to bring in consultants from a technical, financial, and legal perspective. When we're having conversations across the table, our Attorney General's office is great, but we need additional legal assistance when we're having those discussions with our private sector partners. Financial, math is hard. So we need to look at pro formas and figure out, is there a better way for financing? Is there a better mechanism that we can utilize that has grants but also has private sector and equity partners that can come into our projects and tell us this is feasible, we can do this, and we can financially support it. And then finally, we have our technical advisor, and these will all come out next week, so I hope that you guys participate in them if you're interested. We need technical advisors to tell us architecturally, what can we do? What shouldn't we do? Is my floodplain property really not ideal? Do I need to do a land swap? So those types of conversations are things that we're looking at doing from a partnership perspective with engineers, with architects, and with financial experts. So we're utilizing our money strategically, but we're also utilizing our money to develop, but also bring in the private sector to help us understand which parcels make sense, which parcels we should probably try to go after grants for, and which parcels they could be developed, but not right now.
This is all good stuff. We'll have to talk later.
She's not an expert, but she plays one on stage. You know?
I was
mean,
about to
it's-
say I'm taking notes of things I need to talk to you about. So I'm glad I brought paper. Basically, the airport, we have money coming in faster than we can actually procure and move it forward. So we have been moving towards more creative partnerships with our airlines, with our tenants, with our concessionaires, basically to have them move a portion of the projects forward. So that just means that there's more work out there being procured not only by the City and County of Denver and the Department of Aviation, but also by those partner entities that are at Denver International Airport, and things are getting done quickly. So we have the problem
so
of
Qdoba might remodel their spot rather than waiting for DIA to
you got it.
close it off and build the new area and all that stuff.
We help with the coordination when that happens, but no, they can actually get it done faster. And then basically it's a partnership where, yep, we still have the money and things do reconcile, but they can get there faster. They have the staff, and that's the only way that we can get all that procurement done. So we do have a busy next 10 years. Vision 100 is a strategic plan that Phil Washington, our CEO, brought to bear in our organization. It's very serious. He is serious about it. He walks the talk, and FAA's loss, our gain here in Denver. But basically, we have a 7th runway that is coming. Right now, it's in the planning stages, environmental study stage. Design hasn't happened, nor has construction. It's supposed to open by 2028. Vision 100 includes that, the concourse expansions, the Great Hall. Just so you know, the airport right now is only half built. So there's 4 more concourses. We just expanded what we have. The 39 gates we added is, in itself, 39 gates is bigger than the Dulles International Airport in Washington, D.C. So our
Scale. We're talking
our scale. So it's very different. We're 1/3 the land mass of the City and County of Denver, and that basically makes a difference. So we're a department of the city, but we are also an enterprise fund, and we also are basically a city within a city.
Absolutely.
Is the best way to put that. But we don't have the staff of the 35 to 38,000 people that work there at any given time. Only about 1,700 work for the Department of Aviation and for the city. For that reason, we do use a lot of contractors. Some contract that literally, are in-house with us, helping to do day-to-day work, as well as, like I said, all of our partners, contractors, vendors, etc. So there's a lot of opportunities under Vision 100. Empowering our people is one of those pillars. And as such, we have launched the Center for Equity and Excellence in Aviation. That construction is in design. And they basically are going to construct probably next year. So a large facility dedicated to educating people, including as young as kindergarten, basically about the aviation industry and the potential opportunities that they can go for. And they will also engage in research and other community outreach programs. So that is one effort that is going to continue. The 7th runway is another big one, as I said. And then we have Den Real Estate. So Den Real Estate basically has 16,000 acres out of 34,000 acres plus. So 53 square miles that are contiguous. That basically they are opening for commercial development, non-aeronautical commercial development. So right now we have districts. There is rolling offers for development that are available. And if you didn't catch it in the news, Swire Coca-Cola is going to be leaving the Rhino District in Denver, downtown. They're land constrained, and they're going to be building a 97-acre facility on the airport property. And they're currently in the planning phase. So they will open in 2025. And again, it won't be a den project. It will be a tenant project.
Yeah.
Pepsi is still under construction. They also left downtown Denver for larger space, and they're actually just south of the airport.
Awesome.
But stay tuned. We've got water systems and other infrastructure that needs to go out into those areas.
We better give Jason two minutes and 45 seconds.
I'll talk really fast. I don't know if anyone heard anything after she said we have more money coming in than we know what to do with, but that's not common from the perspective that I operate in. Usually it's we have no money, we have all these problems and threats and security issues. And seriously, that's really where our work focuses is, typically one of the, very quickly, one of the areas that I focus on and kind of the soapbox that I get on top of, and many of us think we're going to throw our resources at cameras. Cameras are going to fix the problem. And really, that's not often the case. You have to work through kind of a problem tree to determine what problem you're trying to solve, and then will that control, that security control, solve that. And more times than not, it really is cheaper, free solutions that make the biggest impact for your organization. And then I'll follow that up with, and give you back another minute here very quickly, is that the sooner you start making these planning efforts regarding your security, preventative, and it's in all hazards. It doesn't have to be the terrorist attack that drops the bomb off, but the sooner, the earlier, the better with regard to all areas, cost and effectiveness in that planning. So I'll give you back a minute.
Perfect timing, guys. Okay, so we filled our time, not unexpectedly, right? Once we start talking projects, everybody loves projects. We love what we do. We love you guys. So what I would suggest is maybe out in the hallway, if anybody here is newer to the area, newer to the industry, newer to some of these agencies, maybe hit them up on best ways to engage. We all know to go to their website, look at procurement, but maybe there's some other things that you can do to come engage and start to help the agency do what they're trying to do. So new ways to engage, new ways to help, and we're all here to learn together. So last plug I'm going to make is for the last speaker of the day. I really hope that people can stay. It's one day together. Let's try to focus, and let's not make our friend at the end present to an empty room. And that's it. Ken, let's go. Thanks, guys. Awesome job.